Mr. Mayor, at the time.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call from Ward 6.
Councilmember Jose Ibarra.
Here.
Councilmember Cesar Soto.
Here.
Councilmember Shelton.
Present.
Councilmember Donald Hewish.
Here.
Councilmember Mitch Lindemann.
Here.
Councilmember Margaret Morales. Present. Mayor Robert Uribe.
Present.
City Attorney Juan Pablo Flores.
Present.
Interim City Manager Doreen Watson. City Treasurer Luis Pedrosa.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, for the record, Interim City Manager Doreen Watson is excused.
Thank you. Presentation discussion by City of Douglas Police Chief Craig Fullen and Cochise County Planner Christine McLachlan regarding the annexation strategy for the City of Douglas. Welcome both, and we are excited to hear the strategy plan.
Sorry about that. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My part will be brief, and I intend to enjoy it. Starting in early April of this year, Interim City Manager Doreen Watson initiated discussion with city staff, along with soliciting some guidance from a planning professional by way of Ms. Christine McLachlan from Cochise County, on identifying an annexation strategy and prioritization of study areas for consideration by Mayor and Council. City staff can explain that this is a very involved process and there's going to be a learning curve for us. Some of us have really had the hands-on dealing with annexation previously. We surely appreciate Ms. McLachlan's willingness to impart her expertise and guidance along this route. It is an involved process, but there are numbers of steps that we can take incrementally to get us from where we are now and where we hope to be in the future. So with that, I will introduce Ms. McLachlan, and she has a presentation for you. You do have a copy of it in front of you if you'd like to follow along while we're trying to get the presentation up.
Thank you, Chief. Why don't we just take a couple minutes to use the restroom and...
Mr. Mayor, if you'd like to recess the meeting,
So, you think Shelton? Yeah? Okay.
Thank you. For the record, it's 5:05.
It's okay. You're talking out there, you feel like, well, how about the people? Where am I seeing this? Y luego la spotlight arriba, pues se ve la luz. La spotlight se ve. Pero no se miraba. Pero lo quieren hacer. ¿Sabes qué? Apenas salió del colegio. Y abras la boca sin parar, no saben ni qué hacer. Una de las dos días no está en ningún. Ay, va a trabajar. Nothing on the top.
Great. So we're back in session at 5:17. Presentation from, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name. I heard Chief pronounce it correctly. Is it Ms. McLaughlin? Close.
Good evening again. My name is Christine McLaughlin. I'm a planner with Cochise County. I'm also currently serving as a consultant for the City of Douglas. Tonight I'm here to discuss the topic of annexation. More specifically, annexation strategy, policy, and process. I'm hoping this can be a dialogue, and I invite you to ask me any questions or need clarification. Mr. Flynn is here to help answer any specific questions about particular properties within that city. As I go through my presentation tonight, I'll have both conceptual images like this one on the screen right now, as well as more refined maps. I like to include ones like this so we can focus more on larger topics and less on very specific details, early on. I want to stress that at this stage, prior to council and public input, this is still very much a planning effort. And so we'll come back to these maps a bit. With that being said, I'd like to start with an overview of annexation and what it would mean to the city. On this slide, I've listed some of the most common reasons why cities consider annexation. In some ways, it can make the job of council and your employees easier. For example, it can simplify the city boundary, which makes the delivery of services like police and fire, just to name a couple, a little easier. It also simplifies transportation. Once you annex the roadway, or you annex some parcels, the surrounding right-of-way is also annexed. So hopefully there's fewer cases of roadway segments or sides of the road being out of your jurisdiction. It's also easier to control the general look of the city. Annexed parcels receive development and building permits through the city, and typically these standards are higher than that of the county. And finally, more property means an increase in taxes coming to the city. Following annexation, some things change, other things remain the same. Specifically, the city will assume responsibility for everything on the left-hand column of the slide. The same level of service as properties currently in the city. I note hazard insurance rates, not because the city assumes these use, but because these tend to go down for property owners once they recognize. School districts will remain the same, and the city is not responsible for providing water or wastewater, but it's not uncommon to offer exceptions to these services within an annexation agreement as we typically in the city. When we look at defining annexation
Nothing happened.
Okay, sorry. Specifically, as I was saying, size, shape, and contiguity requirements. Parcels must adjoin the current city boundary by at least 300 feet. Generally speaking, the districts do not be stripped, but rather squared off in form, since the length cannot be more than twice the width. And perhaps most importantly, it should make sense, which means the cost to annex and provide services should not heavily outweigh
So we're going to do Ms. McLaughlin. I don't want to try. We're going to recess so we can recharge the battery there.
Sorry about that.
As I was saying, it should make sense, which means the cost to annex and provide services should not heavily outweigh the benefits the city receives from a particular annexation. I note a couple exemptions on this slide. For example, annexations cannot result in the creation of a new county island. That's when a parcel is surrounded by the county on all sides. And if a parcel is surrounded on 3 sides, it does not have to abide by these requirements on the previous slide. An annexation must include with it a service plan. Typically, this is included within the annexation ordinance, and in terms of timing, the city should be able to provide all services within a reasonable time frame. Okay, moving on. Now on this slide, I've shown the city boundaries in pink, and I've shown the city boundaries in pink and 3 potential sub-areas for us to look at. I'll go into a little more detail on each sub-area on subsequent slides, but this map shows generally where everything is in relation to the city. The blue area is Bay Vista, the yellow area is Kirtleville, the green area is the port of entry. As drawn, all areas meet the size, shape, and contiguity requirements of state law. But I'm sure you may have some ideas about whether some additional parcels should be considered or whether we should eliminate some properties from this map. But as I said, this is just to give you a little bit of context. So starting with the port of entry. As you're aware, there's a proposal for a new commercial port approximately 4 miles west of city limits on James Ranch Road. It's outside the city's growth boundary, which is included in your general plan. But connections to Sonora and trade are stressed within the text of the document. And since you're about to start updating your general plan soon, this physical boundary can be adjusted as part of that effort. One thing you might have noticed is this is a very large area. It's about 8 square miles. But fortunately, it includes a lot of large parcels. I also mentioned Kirtleville on this slide. Kirtleville is the residential French community just to the west of city boundaries. And like most French communities, it receives a lot of benefits of living in the city, but without contributing taxes. The last sub-area I'm going to talk about tonight is Bay Acres, which was the area that benefited from a recent wastewater expansion grant. Property owners hatched on the graphic to the right were eligible to receive a temporary waiver of sewer connection fees and receive city rates for sewer service. Typically, these are hired outside of city boundaries, in exchange for signing a user agreement with the city. For that reason, as well as for its proximity to the city, this area is also a good candidate for annexation. However, this would require the annexation of the area immediately to the west, that's also shown in blue but not hatched, to avoid the creation of a new county island. In terms of timing for improvements, there are some county roads road improvements planned on the roads that you're about to tear up for sewer improvements. These are county roads currently, so that's typical. Okay, next part. Are there any questions so far? Or comments? Now that we've discussed sub-areas, I'll quickly go through the actual process, which is set by Arizona law. Step 1 is mapping. Once a general area has been decided upon, a boundary map and a corresponding legal description must be prepared and signed off by a registered surveyor or engineer. This includes all right-of-way and state and federal land. These items will be included on what's called a blank petition, which gets circulated for signatures. Once the process has been initiated, it's important that the boundary map not be changed. Step 2, we contact the county assessor's office and Department of Revenue to request name, addresses, and assessed value of all property within the annexed area. We allow up to 60 days to get a response, within 30 days. Step 3, the blank petition gets filed with the county recorder's office. The petition includes the legal description and the boundary map, and an affidavit certifying that the property was not subject to an earlier annexation, as well as any state land approval. We do that very early in the process, if it applies. A copy of these filings must go to the county assessor and board of supervisors. After filing, there's a mandatory 30-day wait. The next step is the first of 2 public hearings. This will need to be timed so that it occurs in the final 10 days of that 30-day waiting period. All notice requirements follow those that are similar to any other city ordinance in terms of public hearings and notice. Following that hearing and expiration of the waiting period, the blank petition may be circulated. Signatures are required from owners of 1/2 or more than the value of the real estate or personal property, and more than 1/2 of all property owners. This is why we have the assessor and Department of Revenue information. There are time limits and signature qualifications that must be adhered to. Finally, the signatures can be tabulated. If sufficient signatures are obtained, the petition is complete and must be filed with the county recorder, and a copy remains with the city clerk. Next step is the second required public hearing, after which annexation will be effective within 30 days. In terms of follow-up, there's assignment of comparable zoning, obtaining a certified population count. We all know there's the actual census coming up, so if you can time those together, that would be good. Then in terms of submitting that to the Department of Revenue and ADOT. A copy of the ordinance goes to the Board of Supervisors. Then the city would annex the right-of-way, and the annexation is reported to the U.S. Department of Justice. With that, what we're asking of you tonight is whether you wish to proceed with the development of an annexation program. The first step of which would be an adoption of a general policy, which goes by resolution, outlines goals and intentions of the city council. But tonight is really about introducing the topic and seeing what you think about it.
Thank you. Council, do we have questions for Ms. McLaughlin?
Mayor, for me, if we could go back to the map. I know there's a couple areas within the community that, I know it's not a big deal, but do they have to be separate? In other words, like this bottom little portion there on the south end, about the middle of the city, there's a 6-block area or so that's in the county. Does that have to be separate, or can it be included in something else?
In terms of if you're looking at doing like a large annexation all at once, it would make sense to do one area altogether, because you do an analysis of where the police are, where all your services are. So you would likely want to group areas together geographically.
So we could do little ones.
Sure.
To kind of square up our city, like you mentioned at the beginning.
Correct.
To look at that, make services flow more efficiently.
Mr. Shepherd?
Okay, past Huber Junior High on Washington there, there's a few, I know there's a number of houses in there we haven't included. Why haven't we? That's, see that little block there where the blue is? Right below that, there's that square. People live there, right? In that area.
That can be included.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of this map, where I ended that boundary was exactly where the sewer project had their boundaries.
Oh, okay. Also, too, if they have their own sewer system, they don't have to go on ours, do they?
No.
Okay.
Well, typically they're on septic before they,
Yeah, they put in septic tanks and all that. They don't have to, or is that a...
Well, in Bay Vista, they are limited by that user agreement. Outside of that area, they do have the ability to, yes.
to keep it. I don't know.
Mr. Mayor, if I can ask, what's that little rectangle right in the middle of the, not in the middle, but right under the yellow? No. Yeah, so down there. Why wasn't that included?
Mayor, members of council, that's another county island. That's right behind, I believe, the old Burger King. It's an old RV park that was never annexed. Services into that area are very difficult to get in. I believe there's water service, but there's no sewer. Just the geographic of that particular area, I feel is the reason why it was never annexed. That's, again, my feeling. That's why it was kind of parceled out. But I know that area is it's a big if and really hard to deliver services to that area.
And typically that can be the case at Highlands. There is a reason why it may not be part of the city currently.
Okay. Any other questions?
Timeline on these, the more the people, the longer it takes?
Correct. Yeah. But one thing, looking at, the Port of Entry project, it's a massive area. It's almost doubling the size of your city. But it is a lot of large parcels. So that makes a difference as well.
A good example of that is Marana. Their land area is larger than Tucson. They've annexed everything, out of that area.
Chief, could you provide some background as to why we're looking to annex and safety is a huge concern? Can you talk a little about that? And obviously we're here having this discussion because we hope to expand the Port of Entry, and that's where both the city and the county we both have initiated a location. And what are some of the things you foresee there as far as safety?
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, in response to your first question, I think the idea of us coming before you now is, since we are trying to initiate forward momentum with the city and in preparation of what is to come with the Port of Entry expansion, these are the necessary moves that we need to make now and lay that foundation going forward. To your second question, there are some safety considerations for actually city service considerations across the board, so police, fire, sanitation, as some of the three of some of the given services that the city needs to provide. And while there's a mention of 10 years for us to kind of delineate that out, I want to say that the expectation for those top tier services, police, fire, sanitation, will come almost overnight versus the 10 years. The 10 years is more applicable to infrastructure such as roadways, water and sewer connections. Depending on what area we're talking about, as Ms. McLaughlin explained, the green area for the Port of Entry is fairly sparse. There's not a lot of population there. It does include the Border Patrol station, so that does have implications for us and will increase our cost for service. Bay Acres is largely residential, and we'll have an additional draw on services for police, fire, and the city as a whole. But I would say that Bay Acres at this point is probably positioned well for annexation or for consideration for annexation, just because of some of the infrastructure improvements that are already underway and those that are projected to come in terms of roadway improvements. But there will be considerations for public safety, and we are planning for that. We did ask for some additional personnel, both for police and fire, with these moves in mind.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. Any other comments? Lindemann?
Okay, Mr. Shelton. Thank you. I just had a question that comes to mind. Concerning Bay Acres, we're doing the sewer expansion already, and does everybody have to sign up for that to be on our city sewer?
Well, there was a temporary time limit for when they could do that. That's since expired. My understanding is there was really good participation from
Actually, yes, Councilmember Lindemann, we've already done that process, and out of all the households, which is about 350 connections that we're going to do, about 20 did not sign up. So we had a very high percentage rate of people wanting that service, which kind of sets the tone for us to really look into Bay Acres. We're delivering that sewer service. At this point, it's a good opportunity for us to look at them and say, hey, you know, we're giving you this service. We're pricing it at a higher rate because you're county, but if you come into the city limits, you get the city limit pricing, which is lower. So we have good things to offer Bay Acres right now as we progress with this project. It's probably, as Craig mentioned, it's lower hanging fruit right now that we can go after. It's about trying to increase population with these abutting communities. That everybody seems to think that it's Douglas. Nobody really knows that it's Bay Acres. It's really no differentiation as far as people from the outside. Us, we know, but certainly that's I think the opportunity right now.
And they're already on sewer, city water?
They're already on sewer water.
And they already receive police services?
Not from us, Councilmember Lindemann. They are currently under the Sheriff's Office jurisdiction.
Okay. Do you have officers that go out there at times?
At times, yes, we can provide mutual aid.
Okay. So they do have a little bit, even though that's not primary?
Correct.
Okay. But the assessed valuation does not come into the state. Is that true? So they're actually paying taxes to the city.
They will be paying taxes.
They will be, but they're not now.
Not now. Not until they become part of the city.
I just wanted to ask, what do you think we could do with the 20 people that do want to join right now?
There's still time right now since the project hasn't started. We tried verbally, we tried with sending out letters, a second visit to explaining to them, but some folks are just not going to do it. Same thing happened when we looked up Fertileville to sewer. There's just some folks that don't want it. But we told them that right now it's free. If you're going to want to hook up in the future, you're going to have to pay those connection fees. That grant's going to go away basically. So we let them know that. See if they come around, but I know that most of them will not.
A couple more questions, please. If we proceed with the annexation and we have to grandfather those select few in, what happens in the future? Do they eventually have to pay the fee to hook up?
Yes.
Yes, they do. Yeah, because in that area they're not allowed to replace or do anything with their septic tanks. They are required to, and that's not a small charge. It's over $2,000.
more than $2,000 actually. Just what the city charges is $2,100 plus their connection fees.
That's $3,500.
Plumber to hook up to their actual trailer. I mean, it's substantial. And what the county said, they will no longer certify new or issue permits for new septic. So certainly if somebody wants to get that permit, they won't be allowed to, they will need to hook up to city sewer.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
We have another question here from Mr. Shelton.
Yeah, a couple of questions. Number one, maybe you've answered it, maybe you haven't. When things come up with the police department out at Bakers or in Purville or just the surrounding area, we do help them out. What if there's not a sheriff around? Do we go to that certain incident?
Correct, and depending on what the circumstances are, and what generally happens is if they don't have a deputy in close proximity, we'll send units out there and make sure that everything is safe and maintained until that deputy is able to arrive on scene and then take over that call for service. In the off chance that they still aren't able to respond, then we provide a response and action as necessary.
That's provided. Okay, Luis, how about garbage collection out at Bay Acres or in Purville?
Yeah, good question, Mr. Shelton. That's actually, we talked to our sanitation supervisor, that's set up for easy collection, just the way the automation works. They can roll out their cans and they be set up really easily. I think we have the capacity right now to take them on, at least Bay Acres. Purville, maybe another story, we may need to add another truck and possibly another driver, but Bay Acres is ready. Right now, again, we don't deliver that service because they're not in the city limits. Once they're in the city limits, we would be obligated to deliver garbage.
Okay, thank you. Oh, one other thing, how about fire? If there's a fire out in Bay Acres, Purville, do we go and help?
We do.
And that's what I'm talking about.
I would say that Sunnyside is the primary responding agency for that district, but Douglas Fire does provide support in many, if not most of those fires.
Okay.
And we do provide EMS service there already.
Okay, so say that Sunnyside place where the trucks are, they'll probably, maybe we can get it for Douglas and that would help that end. I don't know what have to.
Yeah, at that point, depending on whether the whole district is actually annexed or just a portion of it, you can get just a general services contract or something where you use them to help assist with your fires, or you could eventually dissolve the actual fire district.
That's probably what would happen. So, okay, thank you.
Mr. Quijano?
I just wanted to, if I could ask Mr. Pedrosa, since, I mean, the county's not certifying any more septic tanks. It seems like the county's just basically saying, we want you to take over it. And do these people understand that? Because in the back of their mind, they might be saying, this annexation might not happen, or we don't know if the city's gonna go through with it. Do they sort of know or understand that the county's saying, you know, we wanna give you Bay Acres? Because how it's laid out, it seems like basically like a hassle for the sheriffs to go from one side and then they have to go through city limits to then get to Bay Acres. So do they sort of understand, or do we have to make it clear for them? Because that's a lot of money. For someone not to understand it, I wouldn't want to put my family in a position, you know, thinking about it from my perspective, them not understanding, and then they're hit with the bill of, you know, well, you know, you didn't buy into the city services in time, now you're stuck with this.
Councilmember Grijalva, as I mentioned, we did several outreach to those folks, explaining to them the potential cost to them in the very near future, depending on where their septic tank fails. So, again, we put that in writing. We put that on at least 2 visits to those homes. So they've received the information. We left some flyers there. But all we can do is inform. We cannot force anybody to sign up.
No, I just had a question.
comment. I know that, you answered, Mr. Shelton's question, but in the past, Porterville was asked about annexation, and I believe they said no to annexation. Is that correct?
I believe that's the history that,
Probably more than 10 years ago.
More than 10 years?
Yeah, I would say so.
Do we know how many, homes we have in Porterville? Can you tell me?
I would say a little bit more than Bay Acres. About 400, close to 500.
1.8 miles square miles is the sizable area.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Just to summarize some of the discussion that took place, so we're right now looking to annex Bay Acres as the first step, and then as we successfully accomplish that there, then we're going to move on to the Port of Entry project, just so that the public has an understanding of where the direction, the vision of the city.
Mr. Mayor, may I respond? This particular agenda item is basically an information opportunity for council to discuss. Later on in the agenda in the regular meeting, we will be asking council to have another lively discussion, and at that time get a consensus as to which one of these areas you're going to for the staff to look at first. I believe that when we get there, we're probably going to be having similar discussion as you suggest, but that's going to be, the direction's going to be in the regular council meeting.
I was under the impression, thank you for clarifying that, just because look, it shows here that says the council, and then you have all the options with that being said, and thank you for the clarification, Mr. Flores, both Mr. Fullen, Chief Fullen, and Ms. McLaughlin, thank you both for the presentation. Thank you. Item 4, I have a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Shelton, second by Councilman Morales. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.
It's adjourned. We can say it. And then have a person.